Hey there, I'm Alan Matthews from Classical Guitar Shed, and in this video we're going to talk about flying with your guitar. Taking it on the plane. Is it worth it? What are the upsides? What are the downsides? How do you negotiate the stewards of the thing? And also you'll find some magic words you can use to get your way with just about anyone. If it's possible, you can get past the gatekeepers with this magic phrase. So very exciting. Stay tuned for that. We'll do it at the end. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe. All right, let's jump in. I fly a lot with guitars, and I've had a lot of different scenarios, good and bad, with flying with guitars. And so the question you have to ask yourself is it worth it? Are you going long enough to make it worth it? Do you want to have it? If you're going to fly with a full-size guitar, there are smaller travel, like folding guitars that are much easier to deal with. But assuming for the sake of this talk that you're wanting to fly with a full-sized guitar, then here are the biggest challenges. Number one, I find the biggest challenge is just toting the thing around the airport. To go to the airport, we end up walking a marathon, right? We're walking from gates, and so having some sort of backpack straps or something can be very helpful. But that's one of the biggest challenges for dealing with the guitar, is just carrying it around. Another thing is negotiating it on the plane. So finding a place, getting it in the overhead, carrying it down the aisle, all that kind of stuff. Actually having it on the plane, getting it on and off the plane. One of the biggest downsides is that it might get damaged, right? Something might happen and it just may get damaged. And so that's just a risk that we have to accept. So now that we know that there is that risk, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to accept that risk? If it gets damaged, can I deal with that? Can my local luthier fix it, or is it insured? This guitar is insured for the replacement value, which is much more than I could ever sell it for. So I'm just praying that someone will destroy it on a plane so that I can get the insurance money. I love this guitar, but it would be financially better for it to get destroyed. So if you've got insurance, then it can be fine. Accept the risk and move forward with getting it onto the plane. First thing we want to do is we want to pack it well. The main part that we have to get supported is the neck and the headstock. So ideally use a hard case if you can, but even in a soft case, then pack your socks and undies around underneath this headstock so that it's not, if it gets jarred, it won't crack this thing off right here. So have your headstock really well supported. The other thing you can do to prepare for getting on the planes is to tune it down. Loosen your strings, in other words. The pressure in the plane, I don't know all this science, but the pressure in the plane goes it messes with the pressure. And so loosening the strings is just a generally accepted good practice for flying with guitars. So the next thing, be extremely nice to airport staff. Smile, look them in the eye, and just be very friendly. They're just doing their jobs. They want everybody on the whole plane to have a good experience. They're not trying to mess with you. Just be really friendly to everyone always if you've got a guitar. And when you're in the plane, I'm just rapid firing these out. When you're in the plane, the first place to ask is whenever you first walk onto the plane, ask the attendant, is there room in a closet for this? Many planes will have a little closet right up in the front, and they can put your guitar in the back of that closet, and that way you don't have to deal with the overhead. And so that's the ideal situation, is to do that, and then they'll get it for you, hand it to you on the way out the door. Perfect. If there's not space there, or if the plane doesn't have one, then put it in the very first spot that you see that can fit it within the overhead. It doesn't have to be right above your seat, because the further you walk into the plane, the further you've got to carry it in and carry it out. And so it's much easier just to put it on, put it above row 6 or whatever, even if you're in row 57. Just stick it up there. People will deal with it. So one of the biggest fears we have is that once we get to the airport and we go through security and everything else, we get to the gate and they won't let us take it on. And so then we'll have to gate check it. And that's a big fear, because we don't want our guitars going through the entire luggage system and getting all the conveyor belts and getting bumped around and spit out and thrown by the guys down into the plane. ideally we can avoid that. And so we want to get the guitar onto the plane. Whenever we encounter an attendant who is telling us no, there's some things that we can do. Here's the magic phrase that I didn't come up with this. I learned it from a mind ninja type of guy on the internet, but it has worked for me in numerous occasions, and it's this. Look, I know this is non-negotiable, but what has to happen for me to carry my guitar down to the plane? That is it. Look, gets their attention. Ideally, smile and say this with a nice thing, look them dead in the eye. Look, I know this is non-negotiable. That takes them off their guard and says, okay, he's not arguing with me. And so then it totally accepts their authority, and so they can relax a little bit. I know this is non-negotiable, but, and so we're going to put that aside, but just kind of negates the fact that it's non-negotiable, making it negotiable, because that's what we're actually doing. But what has to happen? And whenever you say what has to happen, they have to form a mental picture in their mind of what has to happen to actually get you what you want. And that's the first step to it happening, because they probably haven't thought. They could just like, no guitars on the plane, sorry, end of story. But if you say what has to happen, well, you can walk down there, but they're probably not going to have room. It's like, okay, well, that's great, because now I can go and actually ask them if there is room on the plane instead of just taking this person's word for it who doesn't know. So that's the magic phrase. So look, you don't have to say it like that, but look, I know this is non-negotiable, but what has to happen for me to X, Y, Z? And so you can use that all over the place. It just gets people to open up and think of new ways to give you what you want. I've had some incredible results in airports and for different things using that phrase, and so it's a keeper. But it might not work, right? Access denied. Literally, the plane is bursting full. There is no room. You're going to have to check it. Here's the next thing you do, and that is request a special handling tag. So instead of just saying, okay, send it through baggage claim, get a special handling. This is what they do with wheelchairs and strollers. It's where you leave it right outside the plane, and they'll bring it back to you right there. So it's the last thing on the plane, and then they bring it back up the stairs to the gangway, or whatever that's called, and they give it back to you right there when you come out of the plane. That's the next best thing. It's still under the plane, and it gets pretty cold under there, but it's not going through baggage claim. It's a special tag. It's a special handling tag. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's other colors, but go for that. And normally, if they say no to that, then you can say, look, I know this is non-negotiable, but what has to happen? So you can use your Jedi mind tricks with them there as well. If your guitar does get damaged, well, you knew that was a possibility. If it's a big deal, then contact the airport about it or the airline about it. If it's not a big deal, then get it fixed and or get a new guitar if it's just if it's not very expensive, or just live with it. And so it's not the end of the world. It's just a guitar. There's tons of them. We can have another one. All right. Hope this has helped. Flying with guitars, it's not as big of a deal as it sounds like or as it feels like sometimes, but it is really nice to have a guitar with you when you get to your chosen destination. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. Bye.